Episode 1, The Chatter That Sounds Like You. I want to begin with something I have watched in my own life, not as a theory, not as a belief system, a pattern. There is a stream of chatter that runs through my mind. Most of the time, I don't even notice it. I could be making a coffee, answering a message, driving somewhere, trying to handle my day, and underneath it all, another conversation is already moving. I'm thinking about money, my memories, regret, maybe a private argument, a future problem that has not even happened yet, a temptation that knows how to make itself sound reasonable, a warning that arrives with the tone of wisdom, a sentence someone spoke years ago still echoing as if it has permission to live there. That is the strange thing. A room can be quiet, and the mind can still be noisy. No one else is speaking. Nothing visible is happening. But inside, something keeps talking. And because it sounds like my own voice, I used to assume it deserves authority. That was the trap. If desire arose, I thought maybe it needed to be followed. If fear warned me, I thought maybe it was protecting me. If guilt accused me, I thought maybe it was telling the truth. But over time, I began noticing a problem. The voices inside me did not agree with each other. Part of me wanted peace. Another part of me still wanted the last word. I could want responsibility in one breath and want the experience that would disturb my peace in the next. I could look at the house and know it needed attention, then step over the same disorder again and call it tomorrow's problem. That is not one clear voice. That is an inner life divided against itself. Once I saw that, I could not unsee it. There have been times when I made choices I later regretted. At the moment, the pull toward the experience felt stronger than the quiet warning around it. That is one of the tricks of self-gratification. It narrows the field. The future gets blurry. Responsibility feels negotiable. The familiar pattern that always follows somehow seems far away. Then the choice is made, and almost immediately the atmosphere changes. Guilt enters, but not always the useful kind. Not the clean recognition that says, look clearly, repair what can be repaired. That is remorse. Remorse can teach. It can bring me back to responsibility. It can point me towards repair without trying to erase my worth. Guilt often moves differently. It takes one clean action and tries to turn it into an identity. It does not say, you made a mistake. It says, this is who you are. And once that sentence is believed, the inner climate changes. Anger rises. Defensiveness comes in. Patience thins out. A small delay feels personal. A simple conversation is easier to misread. The next frustration lands harder than it should. One poor choice does not always stay contained. Sometimes it creates weather. And then I start living inside the weather as if it's reality. I have watched that pattern enough times to take it seriously. When I move towards disorder, avoidance, indulgence, or divided intention, the fruit is predictable. The mind gets louder. The house feels heavier. Anger sits closer to the surface. The day becomes harder to govern. But the opposite pattern is just as real to me. Certain choices gather me back. They do not have to be dramatic. Sometimes the switch is simple. Clear the counter. Pick up what I have been stepping over. Restore one corner. Stop abandoning the visible space around me. For me, cleaning the house has become more than cleaning. It is an inner mechanics through outer action. My own form of feng shui. Feng shui arranges the outer space so energy can move. What I am describing is more inward. Restoring the visible house becomes a way of inviting order back into the hidden one. I trust that pattern because I have seen it repeat. When sales are low, I do not only look at the website. Inventory matters, marketing matters, the offers matter, But I also look at the house. I look at what I have been tolerating. I notice what has gathered around me while I try to outrun it. Again and again, when I move toward order and real inner commitment, good movement follows, sometimes even in business. Sales come in. A decision becomes clearer. Something that felt stuck begins to move. I am not saying life is a vending machine. I'm not even saying I control reality by sweeping the floor. But I'm also not going to pretend I have not watched the dots connect. For me, this has become one of the main switches, and sometimes when business slows down, I no longer see it only as failure. Sometimes it feels like breathing room, as if life is saying, catch up, restore order, return to your center. Stop trying to carry more through a house you have not tended. That changes the way I understand the slow seasons. Maybe every delay is not rejection. Maybe every pause is not punishment. A pause can be an invitation. Look around. What needs attention? What have you been stepping over? Where has the outer world started showing the condition of the inner one? Because the visible house is not the only house. There is another house inside, the private interior, where thoughts gather. Old voices keep speaking. Guilt tries to become identity. Fear dresses itself as wisdom. Desire negotiates with responsibility. Anger waits for evidence. Memory keeps certain doors open long after the moment has passed. And if I'm honest, I have not always governed the inner house well. Loud voices have held authority in me. Intensity has fooled me before. Guilt has worn the costume of holiness. Fear has borrowed the language of discernment. Control has promised safety, then quietly built a smaller life. Indulgence has called itself freedom while leaving me less free afterward. Every one of those confusions has fruit. That is why I needed a better way to listen. Not a courtroom, not a cosmic tribunal where every moment becomes another reason to condemn myself. Something cleaner, something able to discern without destroying me. So I began asking different questions. Where does this thought lead? What kind of fruit does it produce? If I keep following this voice, what kind of person do I become? I call this my inner compass. Not a doctrine, not a rule book, not fear pretending to be holiness. A way of discerning direction. Because every inner voice points somewhere. A thought can move me toward honesty or hiding. It can open the way to repair or drag me into repetition. It can bring peace closer or tighten the grip of control. Even self-protection can dress itself like love if I do not look carefully. So the question becomes simple. What direction is this taking me? What fruit is growing from it? That is how I listen for my own inner compass. And once I began listening this way, I could no longer pretend every inner voice deserved the same authority. A memory can speak with the force of the present. A defense can sound wise as if it had protected us long enough. Grief does not always cry, sometimes it argues. An old survival pattern may still be doing the job it learned years ago, even after the danger has passed. Guilt may arrive wearing the robe of a judge. Fear may speak with the tone of common sense. Desire may promise freedom while quietly borrowing from tomorrow. But beneath all of it, something can still notice. Something quieter than the chatter. Something able to see the pattern without becoming the pattern. Maybe that is where the return begins. Not when every voice goes silent, not when every problem is solved, and not even when the house is perfect. But when awareness comes back online, when the center returns, when we stop letting the loudest voice hold the keys and begin even in one small corner to put the house back in order. If this reflection spoke to something you have been noticing in your own life, subscribe and follow the series. In the next video, I'll go deeper into what happens after a poor choice, when guilt enters, anger rises, and one moment becomes a repeating pattern. Because the goal is not to condemn the house, the goal is to understand what has been living there and begin restoring it from the inside out. Lumakai.